Good day guys, in this video we're going to be talking about 10 books which are going to help you maximize your success in 2020. So let's go. Hey guys, welcome to the channel. I'm Samuel ICanWin, and if you're brand new to this channel, glad to see you here. And if you're returning, then good to see you back. In this video, we decided to put together 10 key resources, 10 key books predominantly that are going to help you maximize success in 2020. Now, the reason we put this video together is actually because in a number of presentations that I've done across London throughout the whole month of January, I've had people ask me what kind of books I actually read which helped me maximize my success along my property journey. Now, these particular books I'm going to be sharing today are not property specific books, but most of them are entrepreneurship, leadership, and business minded books. So what I want you to do is stay tuned throughout each of these 10 and see how these 10 can add value to you. So without further ado, number 1. Now, the first book is a book I heard of just before I turned 20, and I've been very fortunate to be able to not only engage with that book, but then over time to also engage with several different books, all from the same author. Now, the author of this book is Dr. John C. Maxwell, and the first book is Today Matters. Now, Today Matters is a fundamental book if you're thinking about how to actually utilize and value every single day in your life. When I read this book before turning 20, this book helped me to start to understand how each and every single day in my life was actually a precious gift. One of my favorite parts in this book is where Dr. Maxwell talks about a heart attack that he had and how it had a massive effect in shifting his perception of how each and every single day was valuable. He also then, after that story, goes on to talk about how he's used that experience to reprioritize his life. Personally, I don't even think this book is in print anymore. I think that Dr. Maxwell revamped the book and put it into a new format, but I'll try and see if I can get a link to whatever the book is now or the actual old book and put that in the description on the video. I want to encourage you that if you're one of those people who are looking to get more out of each of your days, to go and pick up a copy of Today Matters and let this book help you maximize this year. Book number 2 is a classic which everybody's heard of and I think everybody knows about. And if you haven't heard of this book, go and buy the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Now, it took me a lot longer than it should have to actually read this book. And part of the reason it took me longer is because there were so many other books I was reading. Those of you who know me well know that I like to read around 7 books at a time. So as a result, it means I end up reading a whole lot of literature. Now, this book is a classic, and it's a classic for several reasons. One of the reasons is because it breaks down the formal way that most people think about money. But then it does something even more special. It then describes a secondary way, a different way that you can start to think about business and money. So I would recommend that you go and get a copy of Rich Dad Poor Dad. Now, my favorite part of this book is the simple concept and fact that Robert Kiyosaki's Poor Dad throughout this book had all the degrees. He had all of the accolades that academia could provide, but he still didn't have his money right. Now, for me, that was a fantastic concept to take out of this book and to utilize in terms of my journey moving forward. And I want to encourage you to utilize the same kind of concepts as you dig through that book. Now, if you're interested in this book or you've read the book already, what I want to encourage you to do is potentially think about going and grabbing the Cashflow 101 game and playing that game with a few of the people that are closest to you currently. Okay, because that game is going to be a real good complement to this book to help you start to understand A, how you currently think about money, but B, how you will continue to think about money. The second book is Rich Dad Poor Dad. The third book is probably one of my favorite books out of all of the books I'm going to be speaking about in this video. Now, I think I first heard about this book because my oldest brother recommended it to me. But at the same time that he kind of recommended it to me, I was looking at content from Dave Ramsey, and I remember seeing this book in the background of Dave Ramsey's radio station. And it made me think, I want to have a look at that book. At the time, I believe I was actually reading a Dave Ramsey book. So I decided to go and buy Thou Shalt Prosper. Now, let me tell you a little bit about this book. One of my favorite things about this book is the simple fact that Rabbi Daniel Lapin breaks down Hebrew terminology and definitions of words which we deal with every single day. One of those words I love that he breaks down is actually retirement and also coincidence. But in this book, Rabbi Daniel Lapin talks about money, finances, wealth, development, and how you can actually tap into it with some age-old wisdom. So if you haven't ever connected or found out or heard about Rabbi Daniel Lapin, my encouragement to you is to go on YouTube, search for Rabbi Daniel Lapin, and engage with some of his content and start to understand why this book is such a powerful book. Book number 3 is Thou Shalt Prosper. For number 4, I'm talking about a book actually written by a generally young guy compared to the authors of the other books. But the funniest thing is, this gentleman is no person to play with, and this gentleman is Russell Brunson. The book I want to recommend for number 4 is Expert Secrets. Now, the reason I want to share this book with you is just simply because reading through this book, you start to unlock the secrets of your individuality. And that's what Russell does in such a fantastic way throughout this book. I remember reading this book and thinking to myself, yeah, I am an expert. And that's the funniest thing, because you are an expert too. And the funniest thing is, as you engage with great content and great literature this year, you're going to unlock your true potential within yourself. So this is the reason why things like this video is so powerful, and also things like this book are so powerful. Now, one of my favorite parts of this book is the fact that Russell Brunson unlocks and unravels different ways of helping you to understand that you are an individual, and not only an individual, but an expert in your individuality. So what I want to encourage you to do is, if you haven't heard of this book, Expert Secrets, click on the link below and get a copy of this book. And if you want to go a step further, Russell had an amazing book he released just before this called .com Secrets, where he's actually talking about the wealth that can be created on the internet. So I'd encourage you to not only get Expert Secrets, but to also go and get a copy of .com Secrets too. Now, for book number 5, I'm going to kind of shift things around a little bit, and I'm going to share with you a book that has massively helped me get even more value from every single book I've read since I was around 20 years old. And that book is How to Read a Book. Now, it's quite interesting that I remember years back someone saying to me, I think when I was reading this book for the second time, why would you read a book called How to Read a Book if you know how to read? And there are several different reasons why you would do that. But one of my favorite things about this book, which I'll share with you, which also is a reason why you might do that, is because this book breaks down concepts of speed reading, the habit of reading, etc., etc. This is the kind of book you need in your arsenal to help you start to squeeze out even more value from every single book you read. If you haven't got a copy of How to Read a Book, if you've never heard of How to Read a Book, I want to encourage you to go and buy How to Read a Book and utilize this to help you develop the habit of reading. Now, for book number 6, I'm going to be recommending a book which, in my opinion, is one of those cut above the rest books. This book is The Principles and Power of Vision. And this book was written by Dr. Miles Monroe. Now, if you have not heard of Dr. Miles Monroe or this book, then you are missing something right now. What I want to recommend you do is get a copy of this book and let this book help you change this year, but to be honest with you, the rest of your life. Now, I can't even remember when I first heard about Dr. Miles Monroe or when I first heard about this book. But what I do remember is this was one of the first Dr. Miles Monroe books I bought, and I'm so glad I did. Throughout this book, one of the things that for me is like the favorite part of this book is the fact that this whole book makes you start to feel comfortable about having a vision. And not only having a vision, if you're one of those people who don't have a vision, it helps you to start to feel comfortable about the process you can go through to start to understand what your vision is or may be. Now, one of the real stories in here which really kind of ignited it for me when I read this book probably about 15 years ago was the simple fact where Dr. Miles Monroe tells the story of watching somebody on a rocking horse and him starting to understand that many people are like someone on a rocking horse. They are making all the motions of someone on a real horse. They're making all the motions of someone who looks like they're moving forward. But the reality is, like most rocking horses, they are going nowhere. So I want to encourage you, if you haven't read this book, to go get this book. But don't just read this book. Do something even more special. Go through the action steps which are on every single chapter, articulating and writing down every single answer to the questions that Dr. Miles Monroe asks you throughout this book. And I can guarantee you that this book will be part of the reason that you get even more success in this year. Now for book number 7, the book I want to recommend to you is a book which has been written by an amazing author. And I remember that I was actually recommended this book by my older brother again when he was reading another book by this author. And that book is called Mentored by a Millionaire. But this specific book, which I've read and have found to be extremely powerful for me and helping me to move forward each and every single year, is Simple Steps to Impossible Dreams by Stephen K. Scott. Now, throughout this book, one of the things that I've really resonated with is the simple fact that Stephen K. Scott gives you a simple methodology to follow in order to not just have a vision, as we spoke about with Dr. Miles Monroe's book, but also to articulate and map that vision out. Map out what you need to do, what you need to get done in order to actually achieve those impossible dreams or goals. Now, one of the things that I find completely fascinating about this book is that the book is stacked with examples upon examples of what Stephen K. Scott calls super achievers. And just reading through the book and seeing how those super achievers have used the 15 power secrets that the book talks about in order to achieve incredible success, again, is extremely empowering. So I want to encourage you to go and get a copy of Simple Steps to Impossible Dreams, but not just get a copy of the book. Why don't you also make sure you start vision mapping so that throughout this year, you guarantee you get some massive success. Now for book number 8, the book I'm recommending is a book that I first heard about through Jim Rohn whilst I was listening to one of his presentations. And that book is written by Dale Carnegie and it's a timeless classic known as How to Win Friends and Influence People. Now, Dale Carnegie wrote this book in order to help people understand how they could use the power of persuasion instead of manipulation. And for me, I'm not really into the whole manipulation thing, so I've always read this book and thought that this book is a classic for a specific reason. Now, if you haven't read this book, one of the things I want to encourage you to do is get a copy of the book, find even just one of the principles in the book and start applying it to your life. And then let me know, whether on the comments below in this video, if that particular principle has been fruitful and helpful for you, because I can guarantee you it will. Use this book to help your relationships get maximized throughout this year so you can get better success before the end of the year is done. Now, book number 9 is a book that I actually found out about more recently than all of the other books in this lineup. And the funniest thing is I heard about this book from Jay Morrison, who's a property investor based in America, also known as Mr. Real Estate. Now, when Jay Morrison mentioned the book, I thought to myself, I'm sure that I'm aware of a lot of the classic authors and a lot of the classic books. So I was really quite surprised that I had never heard of this book. And I'd never at the time even heard of the author. Since then, I've not only bought this book, but I've bought several books from this author, and every single one of them seemed to be value packed. Now, the author's name is Og Mendino, and the book that I'm recommending as number 9 is University of Success. Now, this book, in my opinion, is jam-packed with value upon value for people who really want to take a short course and change their life. Now, one of the great things about this book, in my opinion, is the fact that the book is actually structured as a university degree. So what that means is you can buy this book for whatever it costs, $20, £10, etc. And by going through this book, if you choose to study in depth, you will actually be picking up a degree in success. So I would encourage you to make sure you engage with this book. Now, here's just a line out of this book to give you a flavor of how powerful this book is. The characteristics of others remain irrelevant to your success. Now, just think about it. If you've got a book which is jam-packed with half lines and lines like that, You tell me in the comments whether this book is going to be actually instrumental in having an impact in helping you maximize this year in your life. Guys, jump into the University of Success. Now for book number 10, I'm going to share it with you guys. It's my actual all-time favorite book. And this is a book that most of you who know me probably know was going to have to be in this lineup. And this book is none other than the classic, the Bible. Now it comes in different shapes, different sizes and different forms, but it is what it is, the all-time greatest and classic book. And why do I like this book so much? First reason is because every single book I've mentioned already in the lineup has principles and precepts that's really just been taken from here. Secondarily, because this is the kind of book that through reading it, your life can actually change. And it's done that for me, and I'm hoping that if it hasn't already, it will start to do that for you. Now, I first heard about this book probably from my mum, and you know, the reality is everybody's heard about the Bible. I hope so, or I assume anyway. Now, straight after hearing about this book, I didn't really engage with it. It wasn't until I was an actual adult that I actually thought to myself, let me find out what that book actually talks about, because everybody actually talks about the book. And the funniest thing is I'm going to share with you just one little half verse from the actual Bible. I'm reading from Proverbs chapter 26 verse 2, second half. And it says a statement, the curse causeless shall not come. Just think about that. The curse causeless shall not come. Proverbs chapter 26 verse 2. Now the reason why that verse or that half verse for me is so powerful in regards to what we're talking about in this video is the simple fact that if you end this year without achieving the maximum success that's actually available to you, that's actually right in front of you, and the only barrier between you and that success is your choices, then that curse of not achieving that success is not causeless. That doesn't happen. Curses don't happen without a cause. The curse causeless shall not come. So little pieces like that in terms of nuggets, jewels, you know, principles in terms of this Bible are just jam-packed throughout of it. So I just want to encourage you to even just try and read a chapter a day and get some of the good content that's actually stuck inside of the good book. Now, for those of you who know me, know that I actually am very passionate about giving even more value than I always tell people I'm going to give. And one of the ways I'm going to do that in this video is by giving you free bonus books. Now, these free bonus books are for people who actually want to spend the rest of this year and beyond implementing their business, their success, their entrepreneurship with a little bit of actual ethics. So if you're looking at these free books, it's because you want to add a more ethical approach to your business approach. So the first bonus book that I want to recommend is known as God is My CEO. Now, this book was a book that my wife actually brought with her into my marital home. So when I married her, I got the book. Now, she was bought this book on her 18th birthday by her mum, which is my mother-in-law. And it's funny because you guys who know me know, if you got a book around me, I'm probably going to start to read it. So I started to read this book and I started to see how this book was really a powerful book, sending the message of how you can actually grow your business and your relationship with God both at the same time. They do not have to be exclusive issues. And the funniest thing is I want to encourage you, if you're the kind of person who's interested in reading this book, to not only go get this book, but this book is filled with case studies and examples of other people who have built very successful businesses with their relationship with God growing too. And I want to encourage you as you go through this book to try and find if you actually resonate with any of the examples that are spoken of in this book. So the first bonus book is God is My CEO. Now, for bonus book number 2, this book is a book that I've probably read 3, 4, maybe even 5 times already. And this book is The Purpose-Driven Life, written by Rick Warren. Now, guys, let me say this as a disclaimer. I am not promoting any of these authors in terms of their theology or what they believe. This isn't about that. This is about the content in the book and how you can utilize these books in order to move forward this year in your life. Now, one of the great things about The Purpose-Driven Life is it's a very methodically structured book for you to take on a 40-day journey in order to help you understand what your actual life's purpose is. Now, if you're one of those people, because I've met a lot of people like this, who are struggling, trying to work out, what am I alive for? What am I here to do? How am I gonna live a life with meaning and purpose? I would encourage you to go get yourself a copy and commit 40 days to read The Purpose Driven Life. Now, the third bonus book that I wanted to share with you guys, for those of you who want to implement a lot more ethics in your business throughout this year and beyond, is Doing Business by The Good Book. Now, this book has been written by David Stewart in conjunction also with Robert L. Shook. And this book is an absolute phenomenon when it comes to reading material and resources. Now, the reason why is, first and foremost, David Stewart is an exceptionally accomplished businessman in the United States of America. And side by side with that, what he's done is he's taken 52 principles that he's found in the Bible and embedded them within this book. So what that means is, as you go through this book, even if you decided to read a chapter a week, by the end of the year, you would have absorbed 52 business principles which David Stewart has attested to actually taking from the Bible. When you're an author and you write a book and you get a foreword written by the former president, George W. Bush, that says it all. I want to encourage you, start to engage with this kind of material and allow this kind of material to soak in and actually change your entire life. Now, before we go, I decided to add a little bit more value, as I like to do. So what I'm going to do is share with you 3 key audiobooks which have absolutely been phenomenal in helping me develop in my business and my life, and will also help you moving forward in yours. Audiobook number 1 is The 1 Minute Millionaire. Now, I don't know if you've heard about this before, whether it's been in book form or in audiobook form, but this was probably the first ever audiobook I had ever. And I remember buying this probably in around 2003, 2002, and just absorbing both the principles and the stories embedded within this book. Now, one of the great things for me is that this book is phenomenal because it's actually sliced into 2 pieces. It has one side where it's breaking down to you the whole story of how to become a millionaire, how to develop a millionaire mindset, but it also has the principles articulated on another side of the book. Now, one of the powerful things about that is, if you're a left brain thinker, it's got something for you. If you're a right brain thinker, it's got something for you. So like I said, this was the first audio book I think I ever bought, and it's been a phenomenal resource. And I would encourage you to, even if you don't buy this book for yourself, go and get a copy of this and give it to a child that you know who's around you, so you can invest in their life and help them to start understanding how they can build a business, maybe even invest in property and start to move forward in their own actual journey. The first bonus audiobook resource is The 1 Minute Millionaire. Now, for the second audiobook bonus, I want to recommend you go get a copy of Think and Grow Rich. Now, the funniest thing about this audiobook is I've had the book for ages, and the book was a massive resource in terms of my library. But when I got the audiobook, I started realizing that I could actually absorb that content in a faster period of time, and I could engage with it again and again, more and more. And that's the reason why, although I haven't put this timeless classic into the actual lineup of the 10 books, I have put it in the extra bonus audiobooks. Now, Think and Grow Rich is an absolutely fantastic book. I think my favorite part of the book is where the mastermind principle is spoken about. Just having that power of multiple minds coming together, being able to produce much more than a singular mind in and of itself. So this is a fantastic audiobook, and I want to encourage you to get yourself a copy. Now, the last resource that I'm going to mention on this video is the 80-20 principle. Now, this audiobook again is another fantastic resource which, if you tap into and utilize, will start to help you recognize relationships that are taking place right in front of your very eyes. Now, the funniest thing is, a lot of these relationships are actually seen on a day-to-day basis in our business, in our relationships, etc. But the problem is, when we have no understanding of the 80-20 principle, it makes it very, very difficult for us to be able to decipher those relationships, and even better, get the best out of those relationships. It says here as the subtitle, the secret of achieving more with less. So wouldn't you want to know the secret of how you could achieve more with actually utilizing less? I think the answer is yes. Now, if you've liked this video, why don't you write in the comments your favorite part of the video? Additionally, why don't you press like? or share the video with someone you know who could get value from this video too. Now, throughout this year, I am expecting you to grow leaps and bounds. And part of the reason why is because we're going to be doing a whole lot more content on our channel. So why not subscribe to the channel? Why not press the bell and make sure that you get notified every time we drop another video? I'm signing out. Have a great day. For book number... Now, as I go through these books, I may not actually share these books in order of importance or order of relevance in terms of when or when into... Now the last but by no means why don't you actually subscribe to the channel so you can get actually